Good evening, you're watching Eswatini TV News Bulletin at 8, read to you by Notilisi Tole. First up, let's have a look at tonight's headlines. The Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade has launched government's 45 million Emalangeni MSME loan revolving fund. Local business people traveling to neighboring countries will be required to produce a series of documents proving that their travel is essential in all the country's borders. Leaders of the country's church bodies have mourned the passing on of the president of the Conference of Churches, Bishop Stephen Masilela. And now the news in detail. The Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade, Mangoba Khumalo, has officially launched government's 45 million Emalangeni MSME loan revolving fund, which will help assist local, micro, small and medium enterprises affected by the outbreak of COVID-19. The fund will be administered by Eswatini Bank.
In Eswatini, micro, small and medium business people play an important role in the country's economic activity as they employ 25% of the total labor force, amongst many other contributions to growth and development of Eswatini. MSMEs, however, have been identified as one of the sectors hardest hit by the outbreak of coronavirus, and it is against this backdrop that government has established a 45 million MSME revolving fund, which will be administered by Eswatini Bank.
We have taken a lot of time consulting key stakeholders and following our parliamentary process to ensure that these regulations were passed and gazetted, and that is one of the reasons it has taken a bit of time between when this scheme was announced to when it is actually being launched. But we are very glad to say all the T's have been crossed and all the I's have been dotted, and here we are today with Eswatini Bank to launch this particular scheme today.
Eswatini Bank Managing Director Zakhele Lukele says both formal and informal MSMEs will benefit from this fund, but terms and conditions will apply to all.
We know that government has intended that this be a revolving fund, and as such, it should regenerate itself and, if possible, grow. With proper commitment and discipline on the part of the borrowers and repayment of the loans, we will be able to ensure that the fund benefits all Eswatini and also grow in its balances.
Eswatini Bank promises to be highly efficient in administering this fund. The interest rate for this fund will be at 5.5%, which is 2% less than the normal prime rate. For Eswatini TV News, Hlengiwe Ndlovu with Mbongwa Dube in Babane.
The Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade, Mangoba Khumalo, has announced that certain documents will have to be produced by business people crossing the country's ports of entry to neighboring countries under strengthened partial lockdown regulations announced by the acting Prime Minister Themba Masuku. The minister made this announcement in a press briefing held in Babane.
Following an announcement issued by the acting Prime Minister Themba Masuku on Thursday, the 7th of January 2021, on the new COVID-19 restrictions, Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade Mangoba Khumalo has advised the business community that certain documents will be required and are to be produced at the border by businesses doing cross-border trade under the new COVID-19 restrictions.
Number one, a copy of your trading license should be produced at the border. Number two, a stamped letter on company letterhead from the business listing the details of the traveling employees, their names and surnames, their IDs, their passport numbers, and the duration of travel, and a valid COVID-19 test certificate, as we know. This has been necessitated by the prevailing COVID-19 situation and the high risk it poses during the processing and issuance of border permits. It further remains that cross-border travel will be only for medical purposes, for work-related purposes, for school or education-related travel, as well as essential business, as stipulated in the directives.
The minister further urged the business community to travel when necessary and use virtual meetings where they can, as opposed to physical travel across borders, particularly during this period. For queries, business community can call NDMA toll-free line 112 and 800-1002. For Eswatini TV News, Eswatini Antlamini with Muslim Konda, Babane.
The Ministry of Labour and Social Security notifies parents and witnesses for first-year students currently signing scholarship agreement forms that they no longer need to apply for a new graded tax number from the Eswatini Revenue Authority as per the scholarship requirement for a graded tax certificate. Acting Principal Secretary in the Ministry, Anthony Masilela, says a graded tax certificate from any year will suffice. Furthermore, students, parents and witnesses may also submit their driver's licenses for this exercise. And moving on with the news, presidents of the country's different church bodies, including the League of African Churches Bishop Samson Tlajwago and Council of Churches leader Archdeacon Begindlela Magongo, have mourned the passing on of Conference of Churches Chairman Bishop Stephen Masilela. The church bodies leaders also plead with churches to adhere to the strengthened partial lockdown regulations, which ban gatherings, including church services.
Conference of Churches President Bishop Stephen Masilela died on Thursday while undergoing COVID-19 treatment at the Lubombo Referral Hospital. Church bodies, League of African Churches and Council of Churches have described Bishop Masilela as a devoted Christian who saved the country diligently.
Siva buhlungu kakhulu kukhona yedwa sikhayela bonke nje lokuthi Nkosi yamafelo umkhuhlane ohamba nabo indoda lebende ama contributions la very sound na kufika etindzabeni lephathelana nemabandla naletiphathelana nelive.
On another note, the president also urges churches to adhere to government's pronouncement which ban any form of gatherings, including church services. Bishop Tlajwayo says COVID-19 is dangerous, so every Leswati need to take care. Meanwhile, Archdeacon Begindlela Magongo says Christians should praise the Lord in their homes, as God will continue to hear their prayers even when in their homesteads.
Asekuvalwe emasondweni njengamandla kuze kuphele 14 days. Ulasashito uhulumende asikuhloniphe sithi uNkulunkulu esimkhondako uyasiva ngisho sithandaza lela sihleli khona.
Bishop Masilela started serving as Conference Churches President in September 2008. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, Mbabane.
His Majesty's Correctional Services has suspended visits to inmates in all the country's correctional facilities. This is an update given by the department's Public Relations Officer, Senior Superintendent Gugulethu Dlamini, who said visitation restrictions will come into effect tonight at midnight.
Justice Correctional Services Public Relations Officer Gugulethu Dlamini says by suspending inmates' visitations, the facility is trying to assist government in the fight against the spread of COVID-19 second wave, while also keeping inmates safe from the virus.
His Majesty's Correctional Services, the Commissioner General and her executive would like to inform the entire public that the visitations to the correctional centers has been suspended until further notice. We do recall that before the public was allowed to visit once a month. So now it is completely suspended, no visitations to the correctional centers. We do appreciate that you've been so much cooperative during the past days and the past year. We also encourage you to cooperate with us as we deal with the COVID-19 situation.
Eswatini Acting Prime Minister Themba Masuku on Thursday announced that starting from Friday midnight, the country will be on the partial lockdown. This comes with strengthened COVID-19 regulations, which limit people movement. The partial lockdown is expected to last for 14 days. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla with Muzimkonta Mbabane.
Head of Communications at the National Emergency Response Council on HIV and AIDS, NECHA, Sipesihle Ngwanyana, has advised people living with HIV to adhere to antiretroviral treatment during this time of COVID-19. Ngwanyana said this during an interview with Eswatini TV in Mbabane.
Following the escalating number of deaths and positive cases in the country during the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, the National Emergency Response Council on HIV and AIDS, NECHA, has advised people living with HIV and AIDS to adhere to treatment during this difficult time of COVID-19. NECHA's head of communications, Sipesihle Ngwanyana, says adhering to our treatment and compliance to the regulations is key during this time of COVID-19.
We are saying to the entire nation in general, not just the youth, that it is still equally important to test for HIV. Once having tested, it is equally important to take your medication as early as possible. We are saying test and treat as soon as you can in order to avert any circumstances that might befall you, including contracting COVID-19 and find that you have a weakened immune system. So it is equally important during this time that the nation prioritizes testing for HIV so that they start treatment early, and as such they will have their viral loads suppressed and prevent any form of infection to COVID-19.
Ngwanyana has further applauded the government and the Ministry of Health for making sure that people on our treatment are given 3 months medication to minimize the congestion of patients to clinics during this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. For Eswatini TV News, Zotwa Adlamini with Muzimkonta, Mbabane.
Eswatini Royal Insurance Corporation Marketing and Corporate Communications Manager Sizwe Shongwe has assured the insurance company's clients' funeral claims will be processed expediently and within the newly recommended 3-day time frame. This follows government's pronouncement that families should ensure that their dead loved ones are buried within 3 days.
Our standard was that we are able to pay, or we should pay, any funeral claim that is submitted, provided all the required documentation is presented. We will pay the funeral claim within 3 hours or less. That is the standard we've set for ourselves, and we are happy that at this moment, in line with what the acting Prime Minister has pronounced, we are ready as a corporation to assist the nation to bury or to carry out the burial services of their loved ones as soon as possible. One of the challenges we foresee is the issue of providing death certificates which are obtained from our government offices. We were delighted to hear that even the acting Prime Minister himself did encourage our government offices to be quick as possible in terms of processing these documents, because even for us too, we will only be able to pay out the claim once all the necessary documents are available. So we are happy that even government is on the same drive to process this funeral claim, to process these death certificates as quick as possible, so that we are able to assist our customers in Eswatini Royal Insurance.
Chief Police Information and Communications Officer Pindile Vilagati says, following government's decision to strengthen partial lockdown restrictions, police officers will be visible in all parts of the country to ensure compliance.
At 12 midnight, the strengthened partial lockdown regulations will come into effect. The regulations emphasize on the prohibition of all gatherings, excluding funerals. Following this, the police service will be patrolling countrywide to ensure adherence in particular events.
We as police officers are now geared and ready for the operation. We expect the nation to comply in all the sections of the law as it has been relayed. Things that we'll be observing include the gatherings which have been announced that they have been banned, all types of gatherings except for funerals. So that is what we expect from the nation. And if ever someone goes beyond this, we as police will take the necessary action. We also expect people to comply to the curfew on traveling matters that says from now onwards, traveling will only be allowed until 8 p.m. for private motor vehicles and individuals. But for public service vehicles, they are expected to stop moving at 7 p.m. We also will be observing the operations in retail and liquor sales, whereby we don't expect any liquor shop to open during the time that has been stipulated, as it has been said that only Monday to Thursday will be operational starting from 11 to 4 p.m. and food retailers have to close at 6 p.m.
Vilagati urges members of the public to comply this weekend and going forward to avoid any arrests. Reporting, I'm Lungelele Makakula with Muslim Konda in Mbabane.
The widespread belief that eucalyptus tree leaves help improve the respiratory system has resulted in many people buying these leaves in high hopes that this home remedy will help offset COVID-19.
While eMaswati awaits COVID-19 vaccine, some of them are now using eucalyptus tree leaves as means to protect themselves from the virus. Some of eMaswati has also seen a business opportunity and they are now selling eucalyptus tree leaves, as some people believe that by steaming with the leaves, they will not get COVID-19. Sicelo Shabang, who is one of the people who sell the leaves, says the tree is not common in Mbabane, so he decided to assist the eMaswati by selling the leaves to them so they can remain healthy. Makakula, who is one of the people using eucalyptus tree leaves, says he heard that by using the leaves, one can protect themselves from COVID-19. He says he will drink the water after boiling the leaves. He added that he will also steam. And he so much believes that natural remedies will help eMaswati as they await COVID-19 vaccine.
I believe ukuthi lo gomo utasita ngoba tihlahla I believe ukuthi ngito leseti tasita manje.
In a separate interview with Eswatini TV, Dr. Kevin Makatzange from the World Health Organization said steaming cannot kill the virus or prevent individuals from conducting it. He says people can only steam when they are suffering from normal cold and flu. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla with Mbongwa Dube Manzana.
Local market vendors and hawkers have expressed their reservations with the implementation of a strengthened partial lockdown as they fear that this move will negatively affect their businesses like the first national partial lockdown. The small business owners say they fully understand that Eswatini needs to do everything to guard against the spread of COVID-19.
Following the acting Prime Minister Themba Masuku's announcement that all gatherings have been banned in Eswatini from tonight at 12 midnight, vendors selling fruits and vegetables in Mbabane and hawkers selling second-hand clothes have expressed serious reservations with the effects that the partial lockdown is likely to have on their businesses.
Ukudla lesingakwenza ngoba vele siyafa kuyabonakala njalo ngikutshela nje lenhle sekubathethe
kudele lesingakwenza ngoba nehlala emakhaya kudele lesakudla ngiloko nje kuphela lokungakusho ukuthi umama bangasiyekela mane sente kanjalo sisiyavula namuhla nalona uyavala kuyasa yebo ngona leti into vele madivalelela kulamasela njengalana nje kuvaliwe kunetinto tiyabola
sabanibhadini ngani thina bakade ubhaphaza ngoba kwaba ngconywana lokuthi bemaveji bayeta ngemala thina sahlala lokwekuhlala nakuthiwa kude sinkwa kude mbamba nje uhletile ekhaya what next uthathani sowubhicanisana
siphethe kabi kakhulu leyo kucala isiphethe kabi ngani nje besihlete etindlini bathi phela inyanga masithanda ufuna imali erendi kube bede imali sibhadala yona abaphoka usambela baza bangimuka netimvu nje ukuthi angakhona ukubhadala irent.
uma lo hulumende angaphinda asincembedele phana nasibomake bethi market alingise kuqala asinike sonke ayakala lokuthi kunikwa laba kushiwa laba kunikwa laba kushiwa laba kuyasilimata ngoba sonke sibahulumende
zange sisincembedele thina bakade ubhabhara samangala ukuthi kuyini saphinde sasukuma saya khona le laba besitakala khona bafike bathi akude lutho asinadi nje ukuthi nibobani.
Vendors and hawkers say some kind of relief grants are quite essential in such times since business is not going well. Small business owners in Mbabane say people are further cautious with their money spending habits, which negatively affects business. For Eswatini TV News, Hlengiwe Ndlovu with Mbongwa Dube in Mbabane.
The art of knowing when, how, and why to save money is the key of the key to becoming financially stable. These are the words of economist Dr. George Chungwa in an interview with the news team on the importance of saving and investing money.
Towards the end of the year, consumers find themselves creating debts for entertainment purposes. This is caused by failing to manage their finances beginning of the year. Economist Dr. Chungwa says money is an economic resource and it's used for sustainability and for livelihood. Therefore, the art of saving is very important. He advises that before a person starts to save money, they must have a purpose either to invest, emergencies, or for consumption.
Money, it is a practice of which you need to be careful with the flow of your income. Put aside at least 10% of whatever money comes to you, whether in terms of a salary or any form of income. That 10% that you put aside, you divide it among three classes. 1, consumption, the money that you use. 2, investment, the money that you want to multiply so that you become afloat with your financials. And 3, the money that you put aside for emergencies. Once you are able to practice these 3 elements about saving money, then you'll be able to attain the greatest level of financial stability.
He says it's also important to seek technical financial advice before taking any decisions from the relevant institutions or expertise. Reporting, I'm Lungile Makakula with Muzim Konta in Mbabane.
Good evening, you're still watching Eswatini TV. Now we'll have a look at our sports news. Eswatini Athletics Association Secretary Toba Mazibugo says the coronavirus outbreak has forced them to cancel their racing events where they usually select players for the Olympic Games. Mazibugo says they will now have to look for other alternatives of selecting players.
The coronavirus outbreak is still forcing many different sporting courts to suspend or cancel their activities. The Eswatini Athletics Association has seen the outbreak, forcing them to change a few of their way they have been doing things, more especially this year because it is an Olympic year. Toba Mazibugo explained that they have to change some of their criteria of selecting the national team.
COVID has really affected us. As we speak, the selection criteria for games like Olympic Games is under review. And we will soon be publishing a reviewed selection criteria. It's not really a big change on the selection criteria, but our elite athletes will remember that normally we have even local qualifier competitions that we normally have. Unfortunately, this time around, looking at how things are unfolding, we might not have that opportunity. But however, the Olympic Games are still on, and as a country we still have to participate.
Mazibugo also says regional competitions that were to take place in January and February will now be postponed and some cancelled. Some of the activities they will be able to host once the situation improves. He concluded by encouraging athletes to continue training on their own. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports News, I am Patizwe Msibi, Manzini.
The Eswatini Sports and Recreational Council has since announced the suspension of all sporting activities for the next 2 weeks in the country amid restricted movement controls in the kingdom. The council says sporting activities have been suspended to align with the country's tightened partial lockdown regulations.
The coronavirus outbreak is still causing havoc around the world, which has seen many different sporting courts being suspended. The increase in COVID-19 cases has also forced the government to announce a 2-week restriction. The Eswatini Sporting Council has also announced that sporting activities in the country has been suspended with immediate effect.
It is true. The Eswatini Sports and Recreation Council has taken the decision to suspend all sporting activities in the country with immediate effect. This, of course, is in line with the government statements regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, which is threatening all of us really. We expect full compliance on this, and we are not expecting any sporting activities with effects from this weekend.
The council says after the 2 weeks, they will then update the associations on a way forward after they talk to the Ministry of Sport. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports News, I am Patizom Sibi. Mbabane.
That's all for now. Before we conclude, let's have a relook at our top stories. The Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade has launched government's 45 million Emalangeni MSME loan revolving fund. Local business people traveling to neighboring countries will be required to produce a series of documents proving that their travel is essential in all the country's borders. Leaders of the country's church bodies have mourned the passing on of the President of the Conference of Churches, Bishop Stephen Masilela. And with that, we sum up our bulletin for the evening. Up next is the weather update. From myself and the team here at Eswatini TV, thank you for watching. Good evening.